Hello patrons, it's Digibro with your friendly little update video for patrons. I don't like making too many update videos on the main channel or side channels because when you overemphasize how what you've got going on or what your plans are, then people will constantly be, you know, like analyzing your strategies for content or something like that, or trying to tell you if they think that what you're going to do, what you say you're doing, is even going to happen, and things like that. And it's one thing if I'm making a huge change in direction, like when I merged the channels, but it's another thing if I'm just updating you on what's going on in the moment. It's pretty much only the people who are paying me who I'm really worried about keeping satisfied when it comes to my content. And you know, sometimes I feel like I don't think anybody's dissatisfied, but they will be if they don't understand where things are going, you know? So I feel like I'm in a position like that right now where I have not put out any kind of really serious video in pretty much the whole month of September. I've put out some of my different interesting ideas for series that I do enjoy doing. So something like Poke Thoughts. There's an interesting idea in here in that it's a stunt to watch all of Pokemon, and if I'm sharing random thoughts about it, it's a show that a lot of people have seen. A lot of people might get something out of hearing me talk about it. I enjoy just flipping on a camera and going when I have an idea, and so it's not a difficult series to do, really, and it's not a highly edited. It's not something that is going to have super in-depth analysis, though it might cause you to think about certain things in Pokemon differently if if you had never thought about any of this shit before. But nonetheless, that's a very simple series that is not really all that serious. I just kind of thought it would be funny to do that if I happened to be watching Pokemon and had anything to say. So, that's not a mainstay, reliable weekly series that I'm planning to launch into to carry my channel or anything like that. It's just a fun video to come out so that there's things coming out, because the big serious videos, you know, there's a lot of consideration that has to go into just even deciding which one to make. Because I have ideas sometimes for big serious videos that just seem like I don't think this will justify itself. So I'll tell you that coming away from Otakon, I definitely had a strong desire to make some more historical, in-depth breakdowns of shows. And before Otakon, leading up to it, I was covering all the current season stuff every single day. I was doing these daily anime videos. They eventually became weekly. I continued to do them up until pretty much September, and I just haven't had time to catch up on all the fucking shows yet. And at this point, I think I'm probably just going to wait until they're all over and then just talk about them in individual videos if there's enough to say, which I think there will be for, a few of the shows that I've been watching. And I also might do a huge Ari Ferreira breakdown series, because why not? People like that. It would be fun. It would be easy, relatively. I could probably work on that for a week and get out a multi-part epic series. So that would probably be worth taking time away to do once that show is over, which will be relatively soon. But I have a lot of other shit that I'm halfway through working on, or less than halfway through working on, that is also big projects. So Ari Ferreira would be a big project if I jumped into it, and it'd probably be a good idea. I think most people would be in support of anything else getting pushed back if it meant that I worked on this thing that will be, again, quick and easy and fun, timely, and hilarious. So, classic Digibro du jour. And it would be edited like the way I've done the other Ari Ferreira videos. I don't try to go all out like Devu used to do on my, the Asterisk War Sucks videos and stuff like that, because I don't really think that this is meant to be that monumental of a series. It's more just look at this show. Let's get everything we can out of it, Let's have all the fun we can with this show. as quickly as possible while it's still in our minds, and then we can forget about it completely once it's gone. You know, kind of like a souped up version of the Eromanga Sensei podcast, which, like, that really taught me a lot about what can be successful and why. That, like, I've never done any kind of just episodic podcasts besides that one that's been as successful as that one, because just through pure coincidence of the show being so specifically offensive to both me and Nate, and just being so much worse than we thought it would be, it ended up being like a long, in-depth takedown of a shitty show, you know, that you could listen to in full because we did the whole entire show. So it's like, it had entertainment quality in that, and it made a lot of views, you know, for being an audio only podcast. So, like, with Ari Ferreira, it's like, even if I'm doing something akin to that, but it's actually written and edited to even some extent, you know, I think that's a series that would be good enough that people would want to come back to it. And that's something I really try to stress in my content, is that I want it to be stuff that people will come back to. I want it to not just be like, you know, oh, the new season ended and I wrapped up all the shows with reviews and nobody's ever going to rewatch these years from now, you know, which is how I feel about a lot of my coverage of certain shows that I just covered as soon as they ended. And it's like, I don't even care about those shows. I don't want to hear somebody talk about those shows, you know. But some of my videos will endure the test of time and be like, oh, this is the best review of this show. I got to keep coming back to this, you know. Like maybe my Maid Dragon videos. Like, those are something that they were just a review of a show that had just ended, but it was like I went in deep because I really cared about the show, you know? So, you know, I'd like to be able to do more stuff like that, but, you know, I'll also probably do a few just like roundups of shows that have finished, just like little thought pieces. Like, I might make a video about Accelerator and Fate, the new fucking Fate Zero spin-off show, talking about how both of them, Lord El Meloy II's Case Files, that's what it's called, how they both play into this style of storytelling that I would call like database anime, of like a show that's just about coming up with as many different ideas and combinations of traits as possible and filling a story with that endlessly forever, and just why that's like inherently something that clicks with the otaku mindset, you know. So that might be a fun video to do after those shows end. Vinland Saga and Dr. Stone are going to both be 26 episodes, so I'll just keep covering them. I'm planning to continue to do new shows when the new season starts, because it was pretty successful as a start to this season, and I enjoyed doing it, so, you know, it'll probably be more successful if I do it in the daily style that I started with at the start of the month. But again, I have a lot of ideas that this stuff is all, you know, pick this or that. And like at the start of the fucking summer season, I was editing all those videos. I was putting music in all of them. I was putting visuals in all of them, and that was great for getting it off the ground and getting people to like pay attention to the fact that I was doing this thing, and to, you know, I think I actually gained some subscribers who were just watching for my coverage of new shows. But like, you know, it was unsustainable if I wanted to do enough other projects on the side. And basically, all of this comes down to like, I have finally entered a period where I don't have an editor at all. And, you know, if you've been following me for a long time, you know that I had Devu editing a lot of my main channel videos for a very long time. And granted, I also have always been editing a shitload of my own videos, and people generally seem to like my editing. It is not considered bad editing. Devu would go above and beyond because I would pay him a lot of money per video. You know, initially not so much. When he first started working for me, he was putting in like shitloads of effort just because he was kind of trying to prove himself. He was also just having fun with it, learning how to edit. You know, he wanted to get away from having to work for his dad, you know, and come work for me. So it's like, this made sense, and it worked. The channel grew, people enjoyed those videos, and I was eventually able to pay him a full-time wage. Well, eventually I get to a position where money is becoming an issue, And fewer and fewer people seem to care about like reaching that height of editing quality. Where like it used to be that the videos that I paid Devoo to edit were the videos that got the most views for the most part. Like, you know, the stuff I put the most effort and time and money into usually was the most successful. However, as time went on, it became easier and easier for me to post things that I had just thrown together and would be more successful than stuff that had serious time and effort put into it, you know? And also, when I put serious time and effort into my own editing, it doesn't amount to anything. In fact, it's almost always not worth it because, like, if I really get passionate about editing something, it's probably because it's something really specific that I'm really into. And, like, if I were to point to any video that I've made where I really gave my all to the editing, um, it's not going to be one that's in the top ranked videos I've made by any stretch. At most, you'll probably see like, you know, 30,000 to 50,000 views, except in cases where it was like a comedy video. Like the best video that I've edited myself was probably that's been successful was Anime is Getting Lazy with Its Meta, you know, which is comedy editing, and it's pretty fun, and people like it. But it would have to be that I was making a video in that vein for me to edit it that way, you know? So, like, from my perspective, it's like editing is not worth the money and time. Like, I will do it when I feel inspired, and you'll see videos that I make where clearly I've put some thought into the editing, but it's not necessarily towards the end of making the most accessible video or making all of my anime content the best it could possibly be, you know? And, like, yeah, it eventually was just like, wow, I'm not making nearly enough money off of these edited videos to justify the amount that I'm paying to have them be edited. And if I do it myself, if I get too into the editing on one video, it slows down my content, and ultimately I make more money making more videos than I do making fewer videos. This is the sort of the crux of the whole thing, is that people just are willing to watch stuff with less and less editing, and they are willing to watch more content than they were before. And I've been doing this job for a very long time. I've seen that shift radically change. You know, like, it used to be that if you made a video that was 20 minutes long, if it wasn't highly edited, it wasn't going to get views. That was just the rule. That was the lay of the land at the time. And then, like, pretty much when you started getting long-form analysis videos all the time, and when you had, like, Noah Caldwell-Gervais running a successful Patreon while his videos are 45 minutes of... He doesn't edit the audio at all, so he has, like, mistakes in there while he's reading his script, and the videos are, like, not edited. It's just, like, straight gameplay footage of the game he's talking about, and he rarely even shows the thing he's mentioning. But... So there's, like, no editing basically at all in these videos, but he gives 3 hours of in-depth analysis about a franchise that you care about, and even though he has, like, somewhat of a political slant in his writing, and, like, you know, you might not always agree with his take on these games, nonetheless, just listening to a guy summarize a whole fucking series in depth, analytically, for 3 hours is exciting, you know? And he basically has just always banked on the crux of, like, people just want to hear me analyze these franchises. So, like, you know, for me to go and sort of second guess my own ability to be entertaining without editing, when I can literally, provably make more money making more content as opposed to better content. You know, and better is in air quotes anyways, because a lot of people don't even watch the edited videos. They fucking tab over, even if it is edited. There's a lot of people who just prefer to just listen to my videos. There are some people who'd probably be more annoyed if I made a video that they had to watch. And I understand that. Like, the bulk of videos that I watch online are ones I don't have to watch. Like, I will literally click on every Anthony Fantano video, every Better Than Food book reviews video, every SNES Drunk video. Like, these are videos I don't really have to look at to intake the information from them. I could glance over at it occasionally. But, like, if I'm watching, like, you know, Wiagawa from Best Guy Ever, like, he puts a lot of effort into the editing, and I prefer to watch it. But also, if it slows down for even a minute, I'm gonna tab over. And, like, so it's a dangerous ground we tread on, where it's like, hey, if you're gonna make a 30-minute video, either don't fucking edit it so I don't have to look at it the whole fucking time, or make it really fucking entertaining so that I feel justified looking at it the entire time, you know? Um, and I think there's a happy middle ground between those and something like Half in the Bag, because every time you do look at it, it's pleasant to look at. And sometimes you'll get drawn in. Sometimes you'll just stare at it for a while because it looks really good. But, you know, you don't have to look at it. So, so that's the kind of place I want to fall into. And, like, I can do that less through, like, having to have great lighting and multiple cameras and good set design, and more through just interesting placement of the camera, interesting shot compositions. You know, I don't expect people to look at my video all the way from start to finish, because I tend to ramble for a long fucking time in an unbroken shot. But, like, I try to make it so when you look back at the screen, it'll look cool, you know? Anyway, I've gotten way deep into my editing theory here, which is not really what I intended to do. I'm just trying to update you on each video that I'm working on currently. So basically, what I've clarified is, like, we know the state of me covering the current anime is that, like, most of them are kind of wrapping up. I could catch up on these shows. I mean, I'm caught up on Dr. Stone. There's only like 5 other shows. I usually am watching a lot of these shows with May. She has no time. And this is going to kind of tie into everything else we're going to talk about. Because Davu's not the only editor that I had. I had just recently had May taking on basically a full-time role as an editor, working for me. And, you know, aside from the fact that I already pay for the house and all the food, I do pay her to do just, like, assistant work for me, because she's in a ton of my videos and live streams, and, like, obviously she deserves a cut of what I'm making. So I pay her just a flat rate of what she is comfortable with, you know, and since she had taken on more editing duties, I had given her a raise, you know, like, I considered her kind of an employee, and I don't feel bad about giving her money, because usually it's stuff that affects me as well, you know. So it's, like, kind of cyclical. The money is not going to something that's nothing to do with me, you know. So I'm hiring her, and she's doing Manga Monday and editing the Pokemon live streams. And these were both reliable weekly series, because May is reliable, but she started school. And school ended up being way more punishing than we expected. She was expecting to be able to do school and start work, like do a part-time job potentially, and continue to edit for me. She can't even do either of those other things because there's been so much schoolwork. And, like, if you saw the last Manga Monday that came out, I advertised that the next one would be about Spy X Family, which is a fairly popular manga. So I was excited to talk about it, and it's really good. I read all of it. I made a 20-minute vlog about it. I recorded the last 2 that I did back to back. So ever since that the last one came out, the other one has existed. It just needs to be edited. However, because it became 20 minutes long, May started school right around the time that this was going to fall on, or, like, you know, her school work got intense around the time this was going to fall on her to edit. And, like, basically she just has not had time to edit it. Just not at all, you know? And, like, it's been, like, every week it's like, oh, maybe I could try to get it done by Monday, and then it's just like, I didn't finish my paper, you know, like, I still have to work, I have more schoolwork. So, in spite of that, I went ahead and continued reading the next manga, because I'm thinking, you know, well, eventually the Manga Monday will come out, then I'll do the next one. And I could just go ahead and record the next few and edit them myself. I could even edit the one that she was working on myself. She's already cropped a lot of the images that we were going to use. It was also a complex edit because of the fact that we had to do it online. It's not a manga that's actually been physically released yet, so it's going to be a different editing style for this video. So I could potentially do it myself just to bring back Manga Mondays. But like part of the conceit of doing Manga Monday was that because May was editing it, I was free to not have to do that extra couple hours of editing every week, you know? Because everything I do is going to cut into something else I'm working on, essentially, you know? If it's, if it's editing work, particularly. Because I don't really enjoy editing, so, like, I want to get that part of each video done as fast as possible. And if I can pass it off to somebody else, all the more fun. Like, I enjoy editing when I'm inspired and when I'm working on something that's more editing driven, but as we've established, those things don't necessarily get views. So I don't try to just do that kind of content all the time, you know? So, like, the Manga Mondays are pretty much on hold. I have already read all of Planet S, which was going to be the next episode after Spy X Family, and I have already read the first volume of a manga called Stravaganza, The Queen in the Iron Mask, which I really enjoyed. So, like, potentially, there's 3 of these things half finished on some level. When will they come back? I don't know. Maybe I'll edit them myself if there's enough demand. They don't get incredible view counts, which is why May also doesn't feel like this is like a priority for her, you know? So, it's up in the air. But, like, what was great about Manga Mondays was just that it was a reliable show coming out every Monday, and so too was the Pokemon Nuzlocke. We've been live streaming every single Friday at 7. And the thing about the live streams is we will continue to do those because it's very easy and makes a lot of money for how easy it is. Like, all you have to do for a live stream is essentially get ready for it, which can take about half an hour before you start, stream for 3 hours, and then you're done. And in that time, people will super chat you a bunch of money. Now, initially, we were doing these raffles, which were making a lot of money, where we were raffling off random shit. People would donate a lot to get into the raffles, and we would, mail out prizes. Well, the last episode that we did was right again before May started having heavy schoolwork. And so right away, this kept her from being able to edit the next one because we were releasing the edited versions before the next live stream each week. But also, we didn't have time to work on the raffle stuff that we're supposed to send to people. So we're still trying to get out the last raffles. And, like, initially we were holding off partially because it was a hurricane coming through. But then now it's just, we haven't gotten back to it. So, like, we have to finish the previous raffle, and we haven't been doing raffles since then, because we're just like, well, we haven't even finished the last one. We're not going to jump into another one. But even still, without the raffles, we still make probably at least $100, if not up to $200 per live stream on Super Chats, So, like, it makes a lot of money for being a couple hours of work, and it's fun to do, because even if you have no ideas, you can just read what the chat is saying and react to it. Like, there's no possible way you don't have enough content for a 3-hour live stream, And we usually play video games that we are playing anyways, so it's like, this is a better excuse to continue playing the video game as well. There's a lot of benefits. So we've been doing the live streams, but we haven't been able to edit it, so we haven't been doing the Pokemon ones, and we haven't been doing the raffle. So that's also basically just on hiatus until we can get things sorted out again. These are, again, things that I could edit, but, like, the only reason they were kept on the roster when they don't get that many views is that May could edit them. And, therefore it can reliably come out as long as she's interested enough in doing it. But, like, if it comes down to me to do it, well, it's in the way of other bigger projects that I could be working on. I gotta charge this camera, so I'm gonna go get the power cord. Okay, so anyways, what are all the things that I, myself, am editing? We've got stuff like Poke Thoughts. Doesn't take that much editing, so, as soon as something like that, as soon as I have enough clips, that would just come out. I was planning to do the same thing with the Watching Every Anime Ever series, but, like, there were a lot of comments on episode 2 that were like, oh, without the editing, it's just not that interesting, And I personally, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, we could change the way we discuss the shows, because, like, In episode 2, I very much was, under the expectation I would be editing it when I was talking about the shows. So, like, maybe I would go into a lot less detail about, like, describing the plot. Um, but, yeah, like, I don't know. I don't know if the show is worth continuing without the editing if people just aren't going to enjoy it that much, or if it can be modified. But more importantly, it's also a show I was doing with May, who is busy with schoolwork, and I'd rather try to focus on shows that I can do by myself, just, since it obviously makes more sense. And there's tons of stuff I can do by myself, obviously. It's just like, I already launched these projects with her. I don't want them to suddenly become solo projects if I could just work on something else, Poke Thoughts, for instance, even though we are watching Pokemon together in the sense that I have it on in the background, is nonetheless a mostly personal project, But what I tend to want to do by myself is things like play video games and analyze those, as well as to just like watch really old stuff. Because, watching all the current shows and stuff like that to edit something like Anime of the Week is more fun if I do it with May. Like, it's, keeping up with all these current shows, having something to say about them, it's like ultimately I'd prefer to just wait until the season is over, which at this stage is what I'm going to do, because like I I don't necessarily enjoy just being caught up with everything and sharing my thoughts every single week. Like, I like it in the early stages when there's still new things to be said about each show, but they tend to settle into a groove, and it's just like, well, I can react to what happened in the episode, I guess, but it would be a better experience for me if I just watched the whole show at once and got it over with and said everything I had to say from this point forward in one go, It's like the first 5 episodes or so, you can really chart the trajectory of the show, but after that point, it's like you might as well just wait till the end and talk about the whole thing in full. So, that's probably what I'll end up doing with some of these shows, while just kind of keeping up with the ones that are still continuing on into the next season. But, also starting up the new season's batch of shows and talking about those. So, maybe when I start the next season, I'll do it more by myself, because I'll just start, even last season, like at the very beginning, I kind of sampled most of the stuff to see if it would be worth having her watch it before, like, we started watching together, just because, like, it's easy for me to burn through all the bullshit really quick. Anyway, yeah, so I was trying to figure out after Otakon, essentially, like, what can I do as a new, bigger project to occupy more of my time. Big part of me wanted to go back to classics, especially Dororo, because I read Dororo for Manga Mondays, and I really enjoyed it. We checked out the 1969 anime, and it was actually really good. The first episode was really good. I think I might like it more than the newer one, but there also is a newer one, which justifies connecting it to the present, so I was like, Dororo might be a great series to watch all the different incarnations and do like a big roundup video on it. I also had some ideas to cover some stuff that I had learned about at Otakon. Ultimately, most of that stuff just didn't seem like it was interesting enough to justify spending time on it. I had the idea to do an insert songs video, but I'm willing to just let that take as long as it takes. There's no need to do it now rather than later. So, yeah, like, I was more concerned about, like, finding something new. And, like, initially I was going to do a big series on Kyoto Animation, but ultimately I thought it was kind of uncomfortable, and I wasn't sure if it was, like, the most, like, ethical decision to make a profitable series, even if it is just analysis videos about Kyoto Animation shows. It feels exploitative to use the fact that there was, this fire and all these people died to talk about them for profit, So, yeah, I was just kind of too worried about that to end up continuing the series. And then it became like, all right, well, all of these things said, what do we cover then? Anyways, the point I was getting at is that, I had lots of different ideas for content, a lot of which I canceled or moved around or decided not to do. And generally, it's not that hard for me to just sort of like come up with a video that I can do, you know, like to just kind of think about what would make sense as a good video idea. Like I know generally what kind of videos I can get done in the span of just a couple days that will be successful. But like the idea of just coming up with something like that out of the blue and doing it is like it's intense, you know, and like I've done a video every day for a month where I had to have that mentality towards it. It's just like, what can I do today? Like, what is possible to do today? And you end up with a lot of weird bullshit, and like, none of it necessarily gets no views, so I guess it's fine. But is this really the legacy you want to leave behind? Is a bunch of weird shit that you question a lot of its validity and you would not go back and watch a lot of it. It just exists to fill a day, you know? That kind of stuff is weird, you know? But, like, there's also reliable sources you can go to. For instance, at the end of... I'm trying to keep my month straight here. I believe it was at the end of August when I created the video Ari Ferreira versus Sword Art Online, which is worse. And then the follow-up to that, Sword Art Online will always be relevant. This is a perfect example of me reaching the end of the month, realizing that I have still so many unfinished rants to do from the month before, and having to do my patron rewards, and also having to, you know, figure out what kind of major series I want to do if I'm not going to do the ones that I had planned. And in the face of all that, it's like, hey, it might be another week before a serious video really gets put together. I had an idea midway through the month of doing a Ninja Scroll video, for instance, because I rewatched the movie Ninja Scroll while I was baked with a friend, and I was like, man, Ninja Scroll is such a fucking great movie. I could break it down in extensive depth the way I did, like, Log Horizon or something, and because it's just a movie, I would only have to do it once. It wouldn't be a multi-part episode, it would just be like a 2 to 3 hour long, super fucking in-depth rundown of this movie, edited in the same way that I did, like, the Ari Ferreira episode 1 rundown. Just keep replaying the clips, you know, and circumvent copyright by slowing it and speeding it up constantly, you know. So, like, it would be a pretty entertaining video. I would love to watch a video like that, you know. 3 hour breakdown of Ninja Scroll, that sounds fucking awesome. But it's not like a sure thing, views-wise. It's a long fucking video about an old fucking movie. Yes, it's highly relevant, but it doesn't get talked about the way that a lot of other stuff does on YouTube. I have no idea how it would perform. It would be a big time commitment, and I already have plenty of stuff going on, you know? So, like, I kind of shelved that. I was like, this is a good idea for a video, but not for right now. What is good for right now? Let's watch Ari Ferreira, you know? And I'm still keeping up with doing the weekly anime at this point. So, you know, I'm watching these shows anyways. And, yeah, I get to this episode where I'm having more thoughts about the show, thinking about, is this show worse than SAO? Because that's something people like to compare things to. And in interesting ways, I think the anime is like better and worse at the same time. It's really a captivating show. So I wrote that, and then immediately did the follow-up on SAO always being relevant, which was kind of a response to the comments on that video, and like the reaction to me talking about SAO still, and a good excuse to make an SAO video in a weird experimental style that I wanted to try out. Very satisfying combination of elements. Got a decent amount of views on both of these two videos. Now, riding on that momentum, I had also written another video about Vinland Saga because I had watched episode 7. I had a lot to say about the history of animation. I tied in Ninja Scroll into this script because I had sort of had the idea for this script while watching Ninja Scroll, and then fleshed it out through Vinland Saga, because it's something that is broadly applicable to all anime. My broad concept videos tend to do pretty well, so this is a good idea for a video. I'm not sure if I want to market it as a Vinland Saga video, or if I want to market it as a broad general video, which is more likely. It's going to be called something like Bad Looking, Good Looking Anime. That's a really good title, I think. So I think this would be a good video to release and to edit. And when I wrote it, in order to ensure that I would edit it, hilariously enough, I downloaded clips of like every show that I mentioned in the entire fucking thing. So the editing is like ready to go in some sense, but it is a very long video. And my initial draft of it was really just like rough and chaotic, because it's a video that's making several different points. It really could be broken up into 2 different videos. Okay, so this again brings me back to not having an editor anymore. Because when I used to make scripts to send to the Devu, if I thought a script was too complicated for me to want to try to edit myself, I would just send it to him, and I just wouldn't even think about simplifying it, because I know that he's just going to go through with it, and whatever I wrote, that's going to become a video. If I, myself, am faced with editing this video, that gives me time to look at the script again and again and say, is this the best way I could have made this point? Like, I'm tying it into Vinland Saga because that's just the show that happens to be on TV right now. And I can talk about its adaptation. I can talk about whether or not it works as an adaptation, while also talking about just the entire history of multimedia art, in anime, which is a huge category. It really applies to the entire medium of animation. But I'm basically using it to dissect one specific episode of Vinland Saga. So, it doesn't really need Vinland Saga to be there to make the point, but because Vinland Saga is there, there's also things I could change about it to better make the point using that author's work, because I had completely forgotten when I wrote this script that the same author also wrote Planetes, which got an anime adaptation that looks great. And I can compare whether I think Vinland Saga or Planetes looks better within the confines of this video. But I would probably have to rewrite parts of it, which I've already done before. I rewrote it already. I had done a full take of my original script, threw that away, rewrote it, and then realized I could make a Planetes connection. And I have not decided whether or not to incorporate that into the video, because the video script is already good. It doesn't necessarily need that. It just would have more impact to compare it to the previous manga from the author. So I don't even know if I want to include it or not. This is the kind of expansion that you get when you don't end up making the video right away, when you don't just send it away to the editor. There are times when maybe, Devu would have come out with a video, and then I would have made a vlog to follow up on the points I made in that video because I had thought about it more by the time it came out, But I've already gone through that process before the video's even been edited. So it's like, you could say it's getting pushed back to make it a better video, in a sense, but, how much of that is worth going through with should this video have already been published, because it is specifically about having watched Vinland Saga Episode 7, which aired 3 weeks ago. Sure, there's lag time, the show is still relevant, the episode is not completely irrelevant, it's just if I had done this right away, it would have made the most sense possible. And now it's getting complicated. So, I have not edited that video yet. It is still sitting on my hard drive. And in the meantime, I had building up because I had finished an episode of The Whirling Dervish towards the end of August. And I just didn't like it. I didn't think it was a good episode of the show. Well, no, actually, that was earlier into August that I had finished that one. It just was more of a Patreon podcast kind of thing. So I just decided to put it in the care pack. I have not released that care pack yet. I have it finished. I'm going to mail it probably tomorrow or the day afterwards. But like I just took so long getting around to the patron rewards from last month that like I'm still getting that done. So and then I'm gonna immediately have to launch into the next stage of the care packs and the rants, which have to be done, at the end of the month. When it comes to patron rewards, my mentality is like it can be late but not that late, you know? Because obviously you guys are paying more money than anybody else. And on some level, it's like you're paying specifically for this thing. Like, if you would only have pledged $5, if not for the fact that I offered something that you could get for $10, then it's like that extra $5 you paid is specifically towards this thing. That's probably worth $5, you know? So it's like, on the one hand, you might be thinking of it like, I just give you this amount of money because I really like your content. The the bonus stuff is incidental, or you might be like, hey, I would lower my pledge if you were, if I didn't have the promise of this thing coming. The way I see it, you guys know that I am usually able to make good on things even if they're late. I have kept, even though there's like a big meme of the idea that I don't continue my series for very long, which, is often true, I do come back to a lot of things. I do bring back lots of series. I am clearly planning to do this career for as long as foreseeably possible. So there's plenty of room for things to come back. Sometimes projects are just too big for it to be like worth doing for me now, but maybe it will be eventually, or maybe I'll be slowly working towards it just naturally by way of going through other things. Like when I was doing my Shinbo project, it was like the next video, if I was doing it the way I was planning to, then the next video would require me to just watch everything Shin Onuma had ever directed before I could make another video. And that's a big undertaking because he has a lot of shitty shows. So, like, I was not looking forward to watching all these shitty shows. There's other ways that maybe I can pick off those shows one by one in the effort of getting around to finally making that next part of that video series, and then all the other ones would be easier. But you know, it's a tough hill to climb, but that's the way I had structured the series. Um, so there are plenty of ones that like I think I could still finish the Log Horizon videos. It's just a matter of rewatching the rest of the show and writing the rest of that. Maybe even the Evangelion episodic analysis. I've thought about the idea of like, hey, people just want me to do more of it. I could just find something to say about the other fucking episodes because people want me to do it so badly. But I just haven't done that yet. So it's like, in my mind, there's lots of hanging threads throughout the history of my channel. Lots of things that make sense to do again, to be like, oh, this will get at least 30,000 views. That's not bad, Maybe it'll get residual views over time. If it's about Eva, it'll definitely get 100,000 views. That would be really nice, I don't always get 100,000 views on my videos, not even the Arifureta ones. So it's like, I know there are decisions that just make sense, but it has to also be interesting. And like, my interest is usually piqued by looking at something new or like watching a show I haven't seen before, wanting to write analysis about something because I'm excited about it. And there's plenty of things that I've loved that I like to return to that I feel like, oh, I would get excited about watching this again. But it's always going to be forced if you just do it out of nowhere. If your motivation for watching one of those shows is, oh, I need to make another video series about like a series that I really love, then like you're not really going to want to force yourself through all 50 episodes of Eureka 7 if you were not inspired to watch it when you got other shit that you are thinking about. That like when I covered Log Horizon, it was just like I was thinking about the show again. It had been like 5 fucking years since I'd watched it. So I was like, man, I really want to rewatch that show, and May has never seen any of it. And I was thinking about how she reminded me of the character Akatsuki and also of Lanessia. And I was like, I think she would really appreciate these characters. These are like female characters that she could probably relate to, because they are like nerdy gamer characters. And I also relate to Shiro. So I was like, this would be a really fun show for us to watch. as a couple when there's a couple in the show that we could relate to, And that made it really fun to watch, and then I wanted to analyze it after that. That is like getting inspired to cover something. But it also, the way I decided to approach it meant that I had to rewatch the entire show, which I just fucking watched. It's like 50 episodes long. And I would rather just watch other stuff with May and get inspired all over again, So I wrote the first few parts, and I basically covered most of the bulk of what is interesting about the show. Going forward from there would just be defending parts of the shows that aren't as well liked, that I think are still great, but most, I would be summarizing entire arcs instead of just describing one episode, So it would mean I'd have to rewatch the whole show, which is fine. Maybe I'll do that eventually. Maybe that will come out. It's a loose thread in my mind. You understand? So that's kind of what I'm getting at here. There's tons and tons of content that makes sense for me to make, and I'm always having to balance all that stuff out, and also just wanting to experience new things and getting curious because of the stuff that I look at. So, towards the end of August, I've got this Vinland Saga script that I'm sitting on that I keep correcting. I've also got a Whirling Dervish. I have a second one after throwing out the old one. I have a new one that I'm planning to make. I have 2 parts of it recorded that are hilarious, but I wanted to make a third part. I did not end up releasing it for 3 weeks because I never came up with a third part. I just wasn't whirling enough, I tend to whirl the most immediately after the previous Dervish. And then, takes a while to get that steam again. But, I release it, and it wasn't until, early September, or no, mid-September that I finally released it. So it came out mega fucking late. But I had that at the time, and the hurricane was coming through, so we were kind of we're probably going to have to put shit on pause for a little bit while this hurricane comes through, because we might lose power. We don't know what the fuck is going to happen. It's a big fucking hurricane that was destroying the Bahamas. It ended up being no big fucking deal. But while we were doing the hurricane, May was playing Fire Emblem. And, there was a new Fire Emblem game. She was playing the old one as well to learn about it. We were watching videos about tactics games. I discovered this channel, Resonant Arc. He was doing in-depth analytical reviews of games. I thought they were cool. He talked about Tactics Ogre very briefly in one video, and I realized there was no big videos talking about Tactics Ogre. So I thought, I could play Tactics Ogre. That's probably a pretty fucking cool game. I'll have a great time. I'll make a video about the story of Tactics Ogre. And then I thought what would be interesting is to do a deep dive into video games that are supposedly have really great stories, like the ones that people say have the best stories, and just making videos specifically dedicated to breaking down why those stories are good. Why do people think this has such a good story? And talking about all the different ways that a game can be used to tell a great story, thinking about stuff like Undertale and Dark Souls, where the nature of the game, or Nier Automata, the nature of the game plays into the story that it tells, or just looking at the way that cutscenes are presented in a PS1 game and how they can be used to convey the narrative in interesting ways, just really taking a holistic look at how a story in a game can be good and how it can be enjoyed. And so Tactics Ogre makes for a great start because it's fairly simplistic in its presentation, but it's very effective, and it has a really complicated fucking story that is, traditionally really good, though it is missing some things that I like from a lot of other RPGs. So, it would make a great starting point for a series about dissecting what's good in RPG stories. So I started writing that already. I've written, 4 or 5 pages of just intro for that, just introducing the parameters of what I'm going to be talking about in the series. I have not finished Tactics Ogre, and it's going to take at least another week of playing it consistently to beat it, because it's a long fucking tactics game. It's fairly hard, but I've gotten honestly really good at it. Part of my lack of interest being halfway through is that I'm too good almost. I've just been pile driving my way through stages, but it's fun to just play it and watch Pokemon in the background, and it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. So this is another thing that came up, is that Ash finally won a Pokemon League championship, and it was like trending on Twitter as like a big deal that Ash had finally won when it was kind of a meme that he never had. And like a lot more eyes have been on the Pokemon anime in recent years because of the radical changes to the character designs in Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon just generally being a great show, and I love that show. A lot of people thought X and Y was a great show because they loved the more serious battle element of the series. I had thought Best Wishes was a great show, Black and White, because I just love the voice actors who play the new teammates, and so I watched like 35 episodes of that when it came out, and I play all these fucking games. I like the Pokemon games and the Pokemon anime. I am definitely a big Pokemon fan, so like I'm kind of hype, and I was like, if they're actually gonna end Ash's run in the show and move on to a new fucking canon, it would be honestly for me worth it to just watch the entire fucking show, because even though I know that I will not really like Pokemon Advance and probably a lot of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, because those seasons are much weaker. They're much more episodic. It's much more of just like they show up in a random place and there's a whole bunch of a certain Pokemon, and that's the story, you know? Like, the early episodes have really tight pacing and a continuous narrative, and they're all hilarious. The dub is hilarious up until they change it for Adventure. I might try to watch season 3 and 4 in Japanese. Maybe it'll be more enjoyable that way. I certainly would rather watch Black and White in Japanese, you know, and probably Sun and Moon. So, like, I don't know. Maybe we'll be watching it with more intent later on. But, like, having it on in the background with the dub, perfectly fine. Great way to watch the show. I have seen most of these episodes multiple times from my childhood. There are some I haven't seen before. I had never seen the fucking episode where Brock gets Vulpix. Just hadn't seen it. Was always confused about how he had a fucking Vulpix. People told me there was an episode where he got it. Couldn't remember it. Finally saw it. So, yeah, it's been interesting for me as a huge Pokemon fan. So that's why I was excited enough about that to do a Poke Thoughts video and actually give it a number and be like, yeah, I will try to do this, you know? So, that's fun in its own way. But it also made me want to play some Pokemon games. And I have another kind of series or thing, life event, challenge throughout my life of I want to try to catch all the Pokemon in all the Pokemon games. Because when Pokemon X and Y came out, I played Fire Red before that game came out, and I tried to catch every single Pokemon. I only made it halfway through the game before X and Y came out, but it was like the most fun way I had ever played Pokemon, because it's very obvious the game is structured around it. It's literally structured around the thought that you are going to try to catch all the Pokemon. And I don't think any of the other games has had as strong of a structure of trying to do that since. But I want to see how good the structure is. And the one I'm the most curious about is Black and White. I loved Black and White when it came out, but I didn't play that much of it because I had other shit to do in my life. And what I loved about it was that it was a hard reboot of the series, that it's entirely new Pokemon. You cannot get any old ones, and it kind of replicates the structure of the first game. However, going back to try to catch all the Pokemon in that game, the structure of doing that is very different. It's not as clean, it's not as good, but there's a lot of good things about the game. I'm having a good time playing it and trying to catch all the Pokemon. Which I succeeded at doing in Pokemon X and Y, which is a 450 fucking Pokemon Pokedex. It took me weeks to do, and I had a lot of fun doing it, but the game is not optimized for it. And I made a video comparing how it was in that game versus in Fire Red. Not a lot of people have seen that video. It was, you know, one of the first gaming videos I ever did. It's titled, like, Analyzing Pokemon Y by way of Pokemon Fire Red. It could use a better title, you know? But nonetheless, this is a subject I'm interested in. I started doing it on Pokemon White. So, I don't know if that meaningfully leads to a video about Pokemon White. I don't know if I'm going to be like, oh, here's a video about how Pokemon White compares to Pokemon Fire Red at catching all the Pokemon. First of all, to really prove that, I'd have to go beat Fire Red as well, which I also would like to do. And then, I might as well just do it in all the games and then just make a big video about all of it. But that would take time, you know? Like, even if I dedicated myself to trying to get it done in, like, all the games before Sword and Shield or in the wake of Sword and Shield and then did it in Sword of Shield, it would be an undertaking, you know? So, yeah. I don't know if I'm committed to doing that right now, but I was inspired to start playing Pokemon White while I'm also playing Tactics Ogre to do this other video series on Tactics Ogre while I'm also watching Pokemon on the side so that I can do Poke Thoughts while I also still have a Vinland Saga script that has not been edited. I still have, like, other ancient half-finished projects sitting around. I still am supposedly supposed to be keeping up with this week's anime. I have a ton of patron rewards that I have to get done on a monthly structured basis. Many of them are already late and need to be just, like, hurried through before we get to the end of another month. And all of this is on top of the fact that I have to live my everyday life. You know, I have to eat 3 times a day, get snacks and drinks when I run out. I would like to watch tons of YouTube videos, which is like most of what I end up doing while I'm playing Pokemon. It's just like marathoning videos and getting tons of ideas for like what I want to do with my videos based on what I get hooked on YouTube, you know? Like, I watch all these historical analysis videos about gaming and shit, and I'm like, oh man, someone needs to do this for anime. Like, I could do videos like this, you know? Meanwhile, I already have a pile of videos. And I also have, so, okay, I ran into a bunch of technical problems at the start of September. My hard drive seemingly is failing. It has a lot of shit on it that I need to salvage, but I have no idea if I can. I bought a new hard drive, external, but, you know, there's barely anything on it. I haven't been able to back up the previous drive yet. And my camera also was having issues where I think just because of the way that I was plugging the card reader into the computer, it was like deleting files. So I have this vlog that's called like Critics Should Be Curators, and it's like a 30-minute vlog that's pretty interesting, but basically in it I call for the idea that we need more group watches. And so I wanted to launch a group watch alongside this video to put my money where my mouth is. And I was going to do a group watch of Dororo, which I wanted to do every Wednesday and do the anime of the week along with it. And it would give me an excuse to keep up with all the anime and keep doing weekly videos just so I could also have it be a part of this group watch thing, which I was going to use to watch classic Dororo and then finally have a launch pad to watch all of Dororo through the group watch and then do a big video on Dororo like I wanted to do from the start. You see how this is a great idea? But I twice recorded announcement videos for this Dororo video, and then the files got corrupted and transferred to the computer. And they were corrupted back on the camera as well. So this wouldn't happen if I was using a cord from the camera to the computer, but the cord doesn't want to fucking work. For some reason, the slot on the camera is like fucked up, and it won't make transfers from cords correctly. So I had to plug the actual memory card into a thing, and I had that feeding through another thing, and it corrupted the transfer. I seem to be able to do it now, but you know, I have to once again re-record this launch, and I'm in a different position now from where I was at that moment, where it's like, okay, well now it's been weeks since I've talked about any of these current anime, so I'm just going to wait for them to be over. I'll launch the group watch when the next season starts. So, you know, I have this vlog, and I have the idea of launching this group watch, just waiting till the new season starts for that. So, you've got that sitting there in the wings, uploaded and everything, just not released, you know. And then, so I've got, like, my script I'm working on for Tactics Ogre. I'm playing Pokemon, watching Pokemon, doing Poke Thoughts, finishing the care pack. I'm doing all these things, and still, at this point, I do not have my next big video idea. Like, you have Dororo, that's kind of far off now, you know. the KyoAni thing fell through in my mind, in that I don't want to, I had already watched all of Fumofu, but I just didn't feel comfortable making a video about it. Um, I've got, you know, I've got all this other stuff, but none of them are that immediate. This is such a good idea. I have to do it. Big concept video. And I've come up with countless ideas of things that could be it, but they're just not worthy of the time investment for the view count. Because, like, I might sit here and smoke a blunt and listen to a Denzel Curry album and have 1,000 ideas about it, and I could be like, oh, I could make a video where I, like, in-depth talk about this dude's career as well as this album, how this album is the culmination of, like, what's gone on with him up to this point, and I could edit it to all these music video footages and shit like that. That would be, like, like putting the amount of effort that I would put into, like, a mainstay video for my channel, and maybe that'd be cool, maybe some people would like it, but I can't guarantee that's gonna get any fucking views at all. Like, it could get no views. And then it's like, well, I could do it as just a vlog, just to get the idea out there for a couple thousand views, and some people would really enjoy it, but fuck it. It's not really worth my time to even bother when I could have a better idea for something that's worth my time, you can see where one time I did go through with that for that Manfred Mann's Earth Band video. Like, I just kind of fucking was like, I have enough ideas about this that I could just throw this together right away. It will not require any research. Let's just fucking dump my thoughts on this. And then, like, I almost didn't even publish it because I thought it would just come out amidst a bunch of other stuff, just like, here's another one, I'll throw this in. But instead it was, like, the only video that came out for, like, a week. So it was like, oh, I guess that's carrying my channel right now, So anyways, yeah, all this random stuff gets thrown in there, but, like, I know that it's possible to come up with a great idea for a series or a video. And, like, my current gold standard for myself is the great anime director who time forgot. Anytime anybody asks me, what's your favorite video that you've made, that's the one that I've picked as my go-to. And the reason is that it's about 22 minutes long, which is, like, the perfect length for a long historical analytical video with editing in it, It's entertaining enough that you can watch it all the way through and it feels great and you learn a lot of shit. And you get to see lots of cool imagery because all the movies look great. And, it's edited well. Especially that video because the Devu edited it. So, it's on par with anything else that he worked on. And I just think it's such a strongly written video. And part of it was because of the advice that I'd been getting and the thoughts that I had about my Makoto Shinkai video. Because I'd made this long-ass fucking Makoto Shinkai video that Devu took like a month to edit. And by the time it came out, when I watched it, I was like, oh, I should have changed the script a whole lot before I had somebody spend a month editing this, And, like, my biggest problem with it was that it just didn't have a narrative through line. Like, it didn't really communicate the fact that I had been watching these movies as they came out my entire life. So, like, the reason I am so interested in talking about Makoto Shinkai is I've been following his career the whole time and had very strong opinions about his work. But that doesn't really come through in the video. So when it came to the great anime director who time forgot, I really emphasized taking you on the journey that I took through learning about this thing, and that's what made that so fun. And it's like, I know there's tons of other rocks to be uncovered in anime history just like that one. There's lots of stuff where it's like, hey, if you just sit around and watch 80s OVAs for long enough, you're going to stumble across another one that's interesting to talk about, Either because it's just way better than you expected, or the guy who made it did something else that you didn't expect him to have done. And I wanted to, like, I just sat around just the other day, and I was like, I really have to think of something that would work, like, that would just be something that's just like an OVA that I would have enough to say about, that I could write, like, an interesting video about the context of its release, and just rewatch it, and it would be a good video that everybody would agree was interesting. And so and I already feel like, my Vinland Saga video is one that I think everybody will find interesting. I just have not found it within me to figure out how I want that one final product to be. But, like, I could make something straightforward where I just watch a show, write about its history. And I reached deep inside myself and thought, what do I have a strong connection with, positive or negative, that would be interesting to talk about? And that brought me to Ninja Resurrection, which is an OVA that was billed as the sequel to Ninja Scroll in the West, but it was not the sequel to Ninja Scroll, and it's also incomplete, turbo-violent, and it traumatized me as a kid. So I could talk about the history of this OVA, what the truth was about its production, how it was marketed, how I internalized it as a kid, and how I see it today. In and of itself, interesting video, even just on the surface of it. So I was like, sick, I'm going to watch that. I watched it, I liked it, which adds another dimension to it. It had a lot of interesting artistic influences, and the studio had an interesting history, and I had never heard of them before, and the director I'd never heard of, and he was interesting as well. There's ties in to Giant Robo, there's ties in to fucking Urotsuki Doji. It's a really interesting production history, so I end up writing this, like, 45-minute fucking gigantic post about this fucking OVA. So this is like The Great Anime Director Who Time Forgot Part 2. It's probably even longer. I don't know if it's actually 45 minutes. It's at least 30 minutes long. It's a long fucking script. I wrote it on WordPad, so I haven't like looked at it in Google to determine the length I would expect it to be. But yeah, I wrote a long fucking script about Ninja Resurrection. And this was immediately after having written... What? Baby, did you say something? Oh, I thought I heard you say something. This was immediately after having written a video about Panel de Pon, just for the hell of it, because May was playing Pokemon Puzzle Challenge and Panel de Pon on a live stream, just because I had it on my computer. It inspired me to write a thing about Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. It's a fun little video that I could probably knock out in like 2 hours, so I might just do that like tonight or something, and you guys might be seeing that right after seeing this. Who knows? But I just made that because I knew it would be easy to crank out. And then I also have a vlog that I recorded that I will also probably release before even this video, because I keep forgetting I have it. That was called, like, how to make a lot of money making things on the internet. That one's just a fun vlog that I think will be entertaining. Which is, kind of what I've been putting out most of the last few days. And then I'm going to try to work on the Vinland Saga video and then the Ninja Resurrection video. But all of that is immediately running into the clusterfuck of end of the month, get this care pack I just finished out of the way, make the next one, make a bunch of rants, and then the new season of anime starting next month, wanting to launch a group watch with Dororo, still having other shows that could continue, like the watching, every anime ever videos. If I continue to do those as just vlogs, May and I can probably find time to get some of those done. Poke Thoughts can definitely get done as long as I'm playing Pokemon in the background. Will I finish the Tactics Ogre script in the course of this span of time? I have no idea. I would like to. I still think it's a good idea for a video, a great launch for a series, but I don't know when episode 2 of that series would be able to come out. And on top of all that, I still have random ideas all the time for things that could potentially be videos. I already have a follow-up that I might do for the Ninja Resurrection video, because there's a part in there where I touch on a different director who had directed The Big O and an episode of Doomed Megalopolis and a bunch of other shit that was really interesting. And I was like, this guy would also be interesting to do, like, a director portfolio video on, because I've never heard anybody talk about this guy. So I started watching Dune Megalopolis, which is great. It's a Rentaro production. I've wanted to do something about Rentaro forever as well, and I've been slowly making it through all of his movies. You see, the wheels are always turning. It's just like there's constantly things feeding into each other. And, like, I get a step closer to all of them every time one of them gets done because they all feed into each other. And it's like any point I want to make is made stronger by the fact that I've seen more shit and have more points of reference and have touched on the subject more. So it's like I don't want to try to coordinate all this too much. I don't want to try and say like, oh, it has to come out in this order, it has to be this one, this one, this one, and you can't try to launch any new shows because like, or don't watch anything new that might inspire you, or like, you know, stop playing Pokemon. But like, what if I have more ideas about Pokemon while I'm playing Pokemon? What if one of the cutscenes inspires me to make a short little vlog about it? I have no fucking idea. Like, I don't want to stop the tide. I just want to make as much cool shit as possible. So, if something that you're looking forward to comes out later than you're hoping for, or if a patron reward comes out in the month after it usually comes out, you know, if you can just look past it for a little while, there's always going to be interesting stuff coming on the horizon. And, like, I can straight up admit that there was not enough interesting shit on the main channel in September for my liking, you know? I don't know how anybody else feels about it. Maybe for you, I mean, like, I love the Whirling Dervish podcast. I think episode 9 was great. If you patron me because you love that podcast, excellent. We're having a good time, you know? If you love the live streams, if you love fucking, any of the erratic random vlogs that I release, that's cool. But, like, I want there to be written content. And, like, maybe I'll drop everything and do Ari Ferreira in a week and a half. I have no idea. Or maybe I'll get this Ninja Resurrection video done. I can tell you right now, the Ninja Resurrection video will be the best video that I have made in a long time. Like, it's a really interesting subject. It goes through a ton of history. I think it's structured well. I have a ton of personal connection to it. It's long. It's exciting. It will probably take, you know, a few days or a week to edit, but it's nothing too crazy. It doesn't have to be over-the-top editing. The great anime director who time forgot didn't have over-the-top editing. The movies look so good that you want to look at them, you know? So it's just a matter of making sure I pull strong imagery from all of these films. Not a overly time-consuming idea, but like if you want to do it well, it's going to take a little bit. Nonetheless, I want to do that video as soon as possible because I think it will be great. But there's a lot of different things that also make sense, so I am not going to tell you that they're coming out in any specific order. I'm just telling you all these things are in the works. And I still have other ideas of things I'd love to do. I have like ideas for little AMVs and weird snippets that I want to like put into these videos. None of this is even to speak of my music career that some people are waiting for me to put out new releases, and I'm just like, man, I don't get enough fucking attention to my music. I put my heart and soul into The World Over, and like that album didn't generate that much discussion. I can't sell it because it can't even upload it on YouTube. Like the video got removed from YouTube because of the fucking fact that it has a bunch of samples of Yuki Kajiura songs in it. So like, I mean, not even samples. I'm just rapping over it. It's just like, you know, I don't want to rush to try to put out music until maybe I'm more confident that I can like produce something that's much better than anything I've done so far. But I have made a few new songs that I'm sure you've heard if you follow my SoundCloud, and you know, maybe I'll put together an album's worth of songs. It doesn't take me that long to make songs. Sometimes I just feel like doing it. So yeah, I'm trying to make this a very holistic update. It's like this is how many different avenues I work on, and I've also got, again, daily life stuff. Gotta go to the grocery store. Gotta fucking, you know, pay the bills. Gotta make sure that the fucking lights are on and there's food in the cupboards. And, you know, also just take time to sit and reflect and have my mind able to process all the fucking information that's going through it, which is crazy because it's not only my career that I'm thinking about, but everything I'm watching is like historical information that I'm learning things from. So I'm just like taking in fucking information from all sides, and it is blowing my mind to shit. So that's the kind of state I've been in lately. It's like inundated. It's like I'm playing video games, having ideas about those, while I'm listening to videos that are telling me things. I'm learning shit. I'm having thoughts about that shit. And then I'm also, like, talking to Don Jolly and fucking, writing stuff for his fucking forum and his e-magazine. I'm thinking about making my own e-magazine. I haven't even had time to put real thought into it. Like, I was planning to try to do that this month, but, like, fucking, that was, like, out of the question because I didn't have enough ideas right from the get-go, you know? So, yeah, I don't know. Everything is back fuck up in the pipeline. But all of these things you can nickel and dime your way through. Knock out one thing. All right, well, all I have to do for the care packs is literally just put all the information onto the flash drives and mail them. That's it. No creative. Well, actually, I still have to write the poems on the back of the cards. Oh, God. Well, I could do that and the other thing at the same time. It's no big deal. But that, that's a chunk of a day. So, we'll see what happens.